Hi, my name is Keith Bailey. as well. I'm here to do my recap of NFL Week 13. It was a very interesting week. We start on Thanksgiving. Not Carolina, excuse me. Green Bay traveled to take on Detroit in a game that was a pain to watch if you're a Packers fan. The Packers didn't even put up 150 yards of offense, and the Lions did everything they could to give away the game, which was, turnovers galore from Detroit, missed chip shot field goal, and still the Lions won by 30. Green Bay needs their quarterback back. Green Bay's not going to make the playoffs this year, unfortunately, and you could thank the injury to Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay's not going to make the playoffs. The Lions are going to be that team to make the playoffs from the NFC North this year. So, congratulations to Detroit, barring any miracle letdown, but good for them. Next up, Raiders at Cowboys. I watched this entire game, and Oakland really got out to a big lead, 21-7. And then Dallas able to come back, and they won 31-24. This Cowboys team is 7-5 now. They've won a couple straight games. They still have to keep their eye on the Eagles, but I think Dallas. I think it's again going to come down to that final week, Eagles versus Cowboys, and again the Cowboys are going to be in position to be able to play a win-in playoff game, setting itself up just like that for the 20th year in a row. See if they can finally win it this year. But that's, like I said, barring any kind of letdown or something else happening. Steelers at Ravens. Ravens won 22-20. I was 3 for 3 on Thanksgiving weekend. Picked the Baltimore Ravens in this, and Steelers were really close to winning this game, actually. Or tying this game and sending it in overtime. They held the Ravens to field goals, and on their respective drives, they were scoring touchdowns. And it was too little too late. Time ran out. Pittsburgh wasn't able to get it done. Next up, Jaguars at Browns. I picked the Browns in this game. A lot of us did. Jacksonville's now won 3 of 4. They won this one 32-28, and Cleveland is a mess. They actually just went out and signed Caleb Haney. Brandon Weeden is a terrible, terrible quarterback. And good for Jacksonville. This makes the loss against them, being a Titans fan, this makes the Jaguars' loss look a little bit better. And then there's also that awkward moment when you realize the Jaguars have as many wins on the road as the Saints do, 3, which is kind of funny. And the Jaguars actually have a better road record than the Ravens. So it's kind of interesting, but you know what? It happens. Bucks at Panthers. Panthers were able to avoid a letdown. They won this one 27-6, and they have 8 games that they've won in a row going into the Superdome to play the Saints in a Sunday night game, which they flexed, which I think all of us are so glad they flexed, because this game is going to be good. Carolina, can they steal this division from the Saints? They haven't played yet, but we'll see what happens. Next up, we got the Bears at the Vikings. Picked Minnesota in this one in an upset. I'm glad I did. They were down 20-10, but they reeled off 13 straight points and were able to win. This game actually went into overtime for them again. So the Vikings, they were 2-8 and they're 1-0-1 in their last 2 games. So gotta give them credit. They're not going to the playoffs this year, but they're doing everything they can to avoid getting eliminated. So it's kind of like that escape from a falling cliff, but there's no hope anyways, and they're doing that the best out of any team. Patriots at Texans. Houston actually jumped out to a solid lead, and the Patriots had to come back again, which should raise questions about New England a little bit. This is not a perfect team, but they are playing solid football. They barely escaped the 2-10 team. That's the NFL this year. Patriots win 34-31. My game, Titans at Colts. Again, we lose another game by the skin of our teeth. This 22-14. This game was actually a lot closer than the score suggested. Don't let the score fool you. It was 8 points, but it was 15-14 for the longest time. And I'm not giving up on them yet. They're not making the playoffs this year, barring a miracle win in Denver. They would have, assuming they lose in Denver, they'd have to win out against the Cards, Texans, and Jags. I mean, I don't see that happening. I see a 6-10 or a 7-9 campaign, but I'm very proud of the progress that this team has made. They're not getting blown out. Their average losses are by 7. And I think I mentioned the stat earlier. With Green Bay getting trounced, with with Green Bay getting trounced, and with no, not the Jets. There was another team. What was it? Oh, the Saints. Yeah, the one I can't see on my screen. With those two teams getting crushed, we're now down to, I think, 8 teams that have not lost by more than 2 touchdowns in the season. And those teams are, I'm not going to name them all. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but Tennessee's one of them, so I'm proud of that. It's a stat I'm actually proud of. Next up, Dolphins at Jets. Why did I pick the Jets? This team is bad. Makes me wonder how they were able to beat the Saints a couple of weeks ago. This team is really bad. 23-3 was the final in this one. The Dolphins went into New York in the cold climate, and they trounced the Jets. This game wasn't even as close as the score suggests. That's how bad it was. Me and my father were screaming at the television. Alright, the funny story time. Me and my dad sitting on the couches screaming at the television because we live in the East Coast, and this was the only game that was on television at 1 p.m. And it's like 20-3 in the fourth quarter for the longest time, and me and my dad are screaming like, "Get the Browns Jags games on," or "Get the Titans Colts game on," or I think "Get the Patriots Texans game on." The other three stations that host AFC teams, which are CBS, all those 3 games came down to the wire. The one game that they had a suffer through was Jets Dolphins, and they did not change the station whatsoever. They waited for the game to end, which is very unfortunate. But you know what? They're probably under some kind of contract. But overall, Dolphins very good win. They're 6-6. And they have an inside track to that wild card spot a little bit. Next up, Cardinals at Eagles. I picked Arizona. They were almost able to pull it out. They came back down 24-14. This proves that the Cardinals are for real, by the way, to travel all the way to Philadelphia in the cold weather and be able to compete with an offense like that after a bye. The Philadelphia Eagles are dangerous, and I'm warning everyone right now. If they get into the playoffs, they're a very dangerous NFC team, and I think they could challenge Seattle. I really think they could, especially with the way they're playing. Next up, Falcons at Bills. Here's another game. Overall I went 10-6 this week, so I didn't do too bad, but a lot of the games I lost could have gone either way, like this one. Falcons at Bills. Bills, they had a 31-24 lead, and they couldn't hold on to it. They lost 34-31 in the overtime. And that goes back to my usual case that the Bills are just really bad. They're 4-8 right now, and they're one game ahead of the pitiful Falcons, who beat them. Next up, Rams at Niners. I went for the Rams on a limb, wasn't able to get it. I do not regret taking the Rams. I have no regrets taking the Rams. I had a feeling. The feeling was wrong. Oh well, no biggie. The 49ers got Michael Crabtree back, and that really helped, but they won this one 23-13. Bengals at Chargers. I was wondering why so many people picked San Diego in this game, because I know they're at home, and I know the Bengals are traveling all the way to the West Coast, but this is a Bengals team that, if you look at the record, they were 7-4 going in this game, coming off of a bye week. How can you beat that coming off a bye week? That is something in the NFL that is very underrated. when getting that extra week to prepare means the world to some of these teams. And the Bengals went into San Diego and beat a pretty good Chargers team, 17-10. Broncos at Chiefs. The Chiefs have lost their third straight game. Denver went into Arrowhead and held them on 4th down and 4 at I think the 18-yard line or something. So it was a very good game. Broncos won 35-28 in this one. Giants at Redskins. Referees made a mistake, but I'm glad I picked the Giants in this one. The Giants won 24-17, and they're not out of it quite yet. There's a glimmer of hope. Odds are they won't make it, but you know what? A glimmer of hope is better than nothing. Saints at Seahawks. I just had a really bad feeling about this game. I actually wrote a post on Facebook stating how the Saints play at home versus how they play on the road. And I think the statistics were they beat their opponents by an average margin of 33-16 at home, and they're 6-0. But when the Saints go on the road, they only beat their opponents by an average of 21-20. That's how bad the Saints are on the road. And I picked the Seahawks in this game. Really glad I did, because the Seahawks just trounced them. It was 34-7. This game was just terrible. Drew Brees was held under 200 yards passing. God knows the last time that happened. Seattle's got inside track, and Seattle deserves to be the number one team in football at this point. There's finally some parity and some, I don't know, yeah. There's finally some distance between 1 and 2, and it's Seattle. Seattle's definitely got to be number one. But that's your recap. Please subscribe. I will do my picks and power rankings shortly. And I hope you all have a good night.